The dust swirled around Ezra Coleman's boots as he stumbled into the Apache camp, his hands bound with rawhide strips that cut deep into his wrists. 3 days of riding through the scorching Arizona desert had left him barely conscious, his lips cracked like dried leather. The warriors who had captured him near the silver mine spoke in hushed tones, their painted faces unreadable in the flickering firelight. He could smell the smoke of cooking fires mixed with sage and something else he couldn't identify. Death, perhaps, or the scent of his own fear seeping through his torn shirt. Chief Running Bear emerged from the largest teepee, his massive frame casting shadows that danced across the rocky canyon walls. The old warrior's eyes held the wisdom of countless battles, scars crisscrossing his chest like a map of survival. Behind him walked a woman unlike any Ezra had ever seen, standing nearly 7 feet tall, with shoulders broader than most men. Her presence commanded respect even from the seasoned warriors, who stepped aside as she approached. Her name was Thunder Moon, and according to the whispered legends, she had never been defeated in combat. The chief's voice rumbled like distant thunder as he spoke in broken English, explaining the sacred law that would determine Ezra's fate. A white man who stumbled into their territory during the season of the Eagle Moon could be spared, but only through marriage to their strongest warrior. Thunder Moon's dark eyes studied Ezra with the intensity of a hawk evaluating prey. She had been waiting 28 seasons for a husband worthy of her strength, one who could prove himself before the tribe. The alternative was death by sunrise, a choice that seemed increasingly appealing as Ezra looked up at the towering woman. Thunder Moon stepped forward, her beaded dress rustling like autumn leaves, each step deliberate and powerful. She spoke in Apache, her voice carrying the authority of someone accustomed to being obeyed without question. The chief translated with barely concealed amusement, explaining that she found the pale stranger interesting enough to consider. Her calloused hand reached out to touch Ezra's face, examining him like a horse trader inspecting livestock. The warriors gathered in a circle, some nodding approval, while others shook their heads in doubt. As the moon climbed higher in the desert sky, casting silver light across the camp, Ezra realized this wasn't just about survival anymore. Thunder Moon's eyes held intelligence and pain, the look of someone who had been alone too long among people who feared her strength. She had earned her position through countless victories, but victory had cost her the simple human connection she craved. The ceremony would begin at dawn, binding them together in ways neither fully understood. The sacred marriage would either save his life or doom them both. The medicine man began preparing the ritual items, grinding herbs and mixing paints while chanting in the ancient tongue. Ezra watched as Thunder Moon disappeared into her teepee, emerging moments later dressed in ceremonial regalia that made her appear even more formidable. Eagle feathers adorned her black hair, and war paint marked her cheeks in symbols he couldn't decipher. She moved with the grace of a predator, every gesture calculated and purposeful. The other women of the tribe watched from a respectful distance, their faces showing a mixture of admiration and envy. The night air grew cold, as the desert always did after sunset, and someone threw a blanket around Ezra's shoulders. Thunder Moon sat across the fire from him, studying his face in the dancing light, perhaps trying to see past his fear to whatever lay beneath. She began to speak in English, her words careful and measured, learned from trading posts and captured settlers. Her voice was deeper than most women's, but held an unexpected gentleness. She told him about the prophecy, how a pale warrior would come from the east to unite the scattered tribes. Ezra listened in stunned silence as Thunder Moon explained the ancient words spoken by their shamans decades ago. A stranger would arrive during the Eagle Moon, marry their greatest warrior, and lead 500 fighters against their enemies before the winter snows. The prophecy had been dismissed by many as the ravings of old men, but Thunder Moon had always believed. She had trained for this moment, building her strength and skills while waiting for destiny to unfold. Now, looking at this dusty, frightened prospector, she wondered if the spirits had played a cruel joke. The fire crackled lower as midnight approached, and the warriors began to drift away to their sleeping places. Only a few guards remained, their silhouettes dark against the canyon walls, watching for any sign of trouble from rival tribes or cavalry patrols. Thundermoon reached into a leather pouch and withdrew a small object, placing it in Ezra's bound hands. It was a carved eagle feather, warm from being close to her body, inscribed with symbols that seemed to shimmer in the fading light. She explained it was her mother's, passed down through generations of warrior women. The weight of destiny settled around Ezra's shoulders like a heavy cloak as Thundermoon rose to her full, imposing height. She untied his bonds with surprising gentleness, her massive hands steady and sure as she worked the knots free. The circulation returned to his fingers in painful tingles, but he barely noticed as she fixed him with a stare that seemed to see straight through to his soul. Tomorrow would bring the ceremony, and with it a transformation neither of them could fully comprehend. The question that burned in both their minds remained unspoken. Could a frightened prospector become the leader of warriors, or would the prophecy die with the morning sun? Dawn broke like a crimson wound across the desert horizon, painting the canyon walls in shades of blood and gold. Ezra had barely slept, his mind racing with thoughts of escape that seemed increasingly impossible as armed sentries moved like shadows around the camp's perimeter. The sound of drums began echoing off the rock faces, a steady rhythm that matched the thundering of his heart. Thundermoon emerged from her teepee, dressed in full ceremonial regalia, her towering frame adorned with silver ornaments that caught the early light. She moved toward him with the confidence of someone who had never doubted her path, while Ezra struggled to find his footing on legs that felt like water. The medicine man, Whitehawk, approached carrying a gourd filled with bitter-smelling liquid that made Ezra's stomach turn. His weathered face bore tattoos that seemed to shift in the morning light, symbols of power earned through decades of spiritual service to the tribe. He spoke in rapid Apache to Thundermoon, who nodded gravely before translating the ritual requirements for Ezra. The sacred drink would open his mind to the spirit world, allowing the ancestors to judge his worthiness. If the spirits rejected him, he would die before the ceremony concluded, his body purged of life as surely as poison. Thundermoon's massive hand engulfed Ezra's as she helped him to his feet, her touch surprisingly gentle despite her fearsome reputation. She had painted her face with white clay and red ochre, transforming her already imposing features into something both beautiful and terrifying. Her voice dropped to a whisper as she explained the 3 trials he must pass to complete the marriage bond. First, he must drink the vision brew and survive its effects while the ancestors examined his soul. Second, he must prove his courage by facing the sacred bear in single combat. Third, he must demonstrate wisdom by solving the riddle of the eagle stone. The assembled warriors formed a circle around the ceremonial fire, their faces painted for war, hands resting on tomahawks and war clubs. Ezra recognized some of them from his capture, but now they watched him with curiosity rather than hostility, as if seeing him for the first time. Chief Running Bear stood at Thundermoon's right side, his arms crossed over his scarred chest, ready to witness either a wedding or an execution. The women and children gathered on the canyon's ledges above, their voices joining in a haunting chant that seemed to come from the earth itself. Even the horses had fallen silent, as if sensing the weight of what was about to unfold. Whitehawk raised the gourd toward the rising sun, chanting words that predated the arrival of any white man on the continent. The liquid inside swirled with an oily sheen, reflecting colors that had no names in any language Ezra knew. Thundermoon leaned close to his ear, her breath warm against his neck as she whispered encouragement in her native tongue. He could smell sage and cedar in her hair, sense that somehow calmed his racing nerves. The moment stretched like a bowstring drawn tight, ready to release whatever fate the spirits had chosen for him. The first sip burned like liquid fire down Ezra's throat, bringing tears to his eyes and making his vision blur at the edges. Thundermoon's hand steadied him as the second swallow sent waves of heat through his chest and limbs. The world began to shift and waver, colors becoming more vivid, while sounds took on strange musical qualities. The faces around him transformed into masks of animals and spirits, their eyes glowing with otherworldly light. He felt himself falling backward, but Thundermoon's strong arms caught him, lowering him gently to the earth as the vision quest began. Images flashed through Ezra's mind like lightning strikes, showing him scenes from Thundermoon's past that he shouldn't have been able to see. He watched her as a young girl, already taller than boys twice her age, learning to fight with wooden weapons while other girls played with dolls. He saw her first battle against Comanche raiders, her war cry echoing across the plains as she defended her people with fury and skill. The visions revealed her loneliness, the isolation that came with being too strong, too different for any man to approach without fear. He understood now why she had waited so long for a husband, why the prophecy meant everything to her. The sacred bear materialized from the swirling mists of Ezra's vision, a massive creature with silver-tipped fur and eyes like burning coals. Its roar shook the very foundations of the earth as it rose on hind legs, towering even above Thundermoon's impressive height. This was no ordinary animal, but a spirit guardian, sent to test the courage of those who would lead warriors into battle. Ezra felt his body responding to commands his mind hadn't given, reaching for weapons that existed only in the realm between worlds. The bear charged with supernatural speed, its claws leaving trails of starlight as they sliced through the air toward his heart. Thundermoon's voice reached him across the spiritual divide, guiding him through techniques she had learned from her own vision quest years before. The bear's attacks came in waves, each one more ferocious than the last, testing not just his bravery, but his ability to adapt and think under pressure. Ezra found himself moving with fluid grace, dodging claws and fangs while looking for an opening to strike back. The creature's weakness revealed itself in a moment of inspiration, a spot just below its left shoulder where the spirit light flickered and dimmed. His spectral blade found its mark, and the bear dissolved into motes of silver light that settled into his skin like tiny stars. The eagle stone appeared before him as the bear's essence faded, a crystalline formation that seemed to contain the wisdom of ages within its faceted surface. The riddle came not in words, but in images, showing him the scattered Apache bands, the approaching cavalry forces, and the network of alliances that could unite 500 warriors under a single banner. The solution required not just strategy, but sacrifice, the willingness to put the greater good above personal desires and fears. As understanding dawned, Ezra felt the stone's power flowing into him, carrying with it the knowledge and courage he would need to fulfill the ancient prophecy that had brought him to this moment of destiny. Ezra's eyes snapped open to find himself lying on soft buffalo hides, the taste of the vision brew still bitter on his tongue. Thundermoon knelt beside him, her painted face showing relief mixed with something that might have been pride. The assembled warriors had moved closer during his spiritual journey, their expressions no longer skeptical, but filled with wonder at what they had witnessed. Chief Running Bear stepped forward, speaking rapidly in Apache, while gesturing toward the eastern horizon, where storm clouds were gathering. The prophecy was unfolding faster than anyone had expected, for riders approached through the canyon passes, and not all of them were friends. The sound of galloping horses echoed off the canyon walls as Thundermoon helped Ezra to his feet, his legs still unsteady from the powerful visions. A scout named Swift Arrow burst into the camp, his horse lathered with sweat and foam, bearing news that made every warrior reach for their weapons. Colonel Marcus Thornfield's cavalry was 3 hours behind him, moving with a full company of soldiers and howitzers toward the sacred canyon. More troubling still, the Comanche war chief Iron Fist had allied himself with the Blue Coats, promising to lead them to every Apache stronghold in exchange for safe passage to Mexico. The trap was closing, and Thundermoon's people had nowhere left to run. Thundermoon's transformation was immediate and terrifying. her ceremonial regalia giving way to war paint and battle dress as she prepared to defend her people. She moved through the camp like a force of nature, issuing commands in her deep, authoritative voice while warriors scrambled to obey without question. Ezra watched in fascination as she became the leader he was supposed to be, her tactical mind working through defensive positions and escape routes with the skill of a seasoned general. The marriage ceremony would have to wait, for survival took precedence over prophecy, and Thunder Moon had never lost a battle she was determined to win. Her eyes met his across the chaos, and he saw not just a warrior, but a woman who had found her equal at last. The first complication arrived in the form of Broken Wing, a rival chief from the northern bands who had heard rumors of the prophecy and come to challenge its validity. His 100 warriors rode into the canyon with weapons drawn, demanding to see this pale stranger who claimed the right to lead Apache fighters. Broken Wing himself was a formidable opponent. His face scarred from a dozen battles, his reputation for cruelty matched only by his tactical brilliance. He dismounted near the central fire, his cold eyes fixed on Ezra with the intensity of a predator sizing up prey. The challenge was issued in the ancient way, with a thrown gauntlet that landed at Ezra's feet like a declaration of war. Thunder Moon stepped between them before Ezra could respond, her massive frame blocking Broken Wing's advance, while her hand rested on the grip of her war axe. The tension in the camp ratcheted higher as warriors from both bands faced off, old rivalries and territorial disputes threatening to tear apart any hope of unity. She spoke in rapid Apache, her words carrying the weight of tradition and honor, explaining the sacred nature of the prophecy and the trials Ezra had already passed. Broken Wing laughed, a harsh sound that echoed off the canyon walls, claiming that no white man could ever understand the warrior's path. His challenge remained, backed by the implicit threat of his 100 fighters and their loyalty to his leadership alone. The solution came to Ezra like another vision, the Eagle Stone's wisdom flowing through him as he stepped around Thunder Moon to face his challenger. He accepted the duel, but proposed different terms, a test that would prove leadership rather than just fighting skill. Instead of single combat, he suggested they compete to see who could unite the most warriors before the cavalry arrived, with the winner earning the right to command all forces in the coming battle. Broken Wing's eyes narrowed as he considered the proposal, recognizing both its cleverness and its danger. If Ezra could somehow attract more followers than a proven war chief, the pale stranger might indeed be the leader foretold in the ancient prophecies. Swift Arrow returned with more dire news as the two leaders negotiated their contest, reporting that additional cavalry units were converging on the canyon from multiple directions. Colonel Thornfield had learned from previous defeats, bringing not just soldiers, but also howitzers and Gatling guns that could sweep the canyon clean of defenders. The timeline had compressed from hours to minutes, forcing both Ezra and Broken Wing to act quickly or watch their people be slaughtered. Thunder Moon translated the scout's report, her voice tight with controlled fury as she described the overwhelming odds they now faced. The marriage ceremony, the leadership contest, and the prophecy itself might all be rendered meaningless by superior firepower and military discipline. Ezra felt the weight of destiny pressing down on his shoulders as he realized what the Eagle Stone's vision had truly shown him. The network of alliances wasn't just about Apache bands, but included other tribes, outlaws, and even sympathetic settlers who had grown tired of military oppression. Messages needed to be sent immediately, calling in debts and favors that could bring reinforcements from unexpected sources. He began issuing orders with an authority that surprised everyone, including himself, dispatching the fastest riders to contact Mexican bandits, Navajo warriors, and even a group of Confederate deserters hiding in the mountains. Thunder Moon watched with growing amazement as her new husband transformed from frightened captive to decisive leader. The most shocking revelation came when Broken Wing's own lieutenant, a young warrior named Soaring Hawk, approached Ezra with information that changed everything. Colonel Thornfield wasn't just hunting Apache bands, but was part of a larger conspiracy to provoke a war that would justify seizing Apache lands for mining operations. The colonel had secret orders to eliminate all native leaders who might organize effective resistance, making Thundermoon and Broken Wing primary targets regardless of any surrender attempts. The information came at a terrible cost, for Soaring Hawk had been tortured by cavalry scouts before escaping, his wounds testament to the brutality they could expect if captured. Now the choice was clear: unite or die separately, with no middle ground for negotiation or retreat. As the first sounds of approaching cavalry reached the canyon, Ezra made the decision that would define his leadership and fulfill the ancient prophecy. He walked to the central fire and threw his hat into the flames, watching it burn as he formally accepted his role as war chief of all assembled warriors. Thundermoon stood beside him, her hand finding his as she added her voice to his commands, their partnership sealed not by ceremony but by shared determination to protect their people. The marriage would be consummated in battle rather than ritual, their bond forged in the crucible of war rather than the sacred lodge. Broken Wing stepped forward after a moment's hesitation, offering his hand in alliance while his warriors merged with Thundermoon's forces. The prophecy was coming true in ways none of them had expected, but the real test lay in the approaching thunder of cavalry horses and the deadly promise of modern weapons. The canyon erupted into controlled chaos as Ezra's hastily assembled force of 500 warriors took their positions among the rocks and ledges. Thundermoon led the eastern flank with her original band, their war paint gleaming in the afternoon sun as they prepared ambush positions that would funnel the cavalry into killing zones. Broken Wing commanded the western approach, his rivalry with Ezra temporarily forgotten in the face of their common enemy, his tactical expertise evident as he positioned his fighters for maximum advantage. The unlikely alliance held together by desperation and shared purpose, each warrior understanding that survival depended on unity rather than old grievances. From his command position on the highest ledge, Ezra could see the dust cloud of Colonel Thornfield's approaching forces, a brown stain against the blue desert sky that promised violence and death. The first exchange of gunfire shattered the canyon's silence as cavalry scouts rode into Ezra's carefully planned trap, their horses screaming as Apache arrows found their marks. Colonel Thornfield's voice boomed across the battlefield, ordering his howitzers to bombard the canyon walls, while his Gatling guns swept the lower positions with deadly precision. Thundermoon's war cry echoed off the rocks as she led a flanking charge against the artillery positions, her massive frame moving with surprising grace as she dodged rifle fire and explosive shells. The battle became a deadly chess game played with human pieces, each side adapting to the other's tactics, while the canyon filled with smoke and the metallic taste of blood. Ezra found himself thinking not as a frightened prospector, but as a general, his mind calculating angles and distances, while his voice carried commands that could mean life or death for hundreds of fighters. The tide of battle shifted when Soaring Hawk's intelligence proved accurate, revealing that Colonel Thornfield had divided his forces to block every exit from the canyon. The cavalry had superior firepower, but was fighting on unfamiliar ground against enemies who knew every rock and crevice of their ancestral territory. Thundermoon's tactical brilliance showed as she used the canyon's acoustics to coordinate attacks, her deep voice carrying across the battlefield to direct warriors she couldn't see. Ezra realized that the prophecy wasn't about him becoming a great war chief, but about recognizing greatness in others and learning to lead by bringing out their best. The marriage to Thundermoon wasn't just ceremonial, but strategic, uniting his growing leadership skills with her unmatched tactical genius. Colonel Thornfield's desperation became apparent when he ordered his men to use incendiary shells against the sacred burial caves, crossing a line that turned even neutral Apache bands against him. The desecration of ancestral resting places brought reinforcements streaming into the canyon from tribes that had remained aloof from the conflict. Ezra watched in amazement as his force swelled beyond 500 warriors, fulfilling the prophecy in ways that exceeded its original promise. Thunder Moon appeared at his side, blood streaming from a grazing wound on her arm, but her eyes blazing with fierce joy as she pointed to the cavalry's crumbling positions. The colonel had overextended his forces and lost the initiative, his superior weapons useless against enemies who refused to fight by conventional rules. The climactic moment came when Colonel Thornfield himself charged up the canyon's central path, his saber gleaming as he sought personal combat with the leaders of the resistance. Thunder Moon moved to intercept him, but Ezra stepped forward instead, drawing the revolver he had taken from a fallen cavalry officer during the morning's fighting. The duel took place in a circle of watching warriors from both sides, the outcome determining not just personal honor, but the fate of everyone in the canyon. Thornfield was a skilled swordsman and experienced fighter, but Ezra had the advantage of fighting for people he had learned to love, rather than orders he didn't fully understand. The colonel's blade whistled past Ezra's head as the younger man's shot found its mark, ending both the duel and the organized resistance of the cavalry forces. As the surviving soldiers retreated in disorder, leaving their dead and wounded behind, Ezra found himself surrounded by 500 warriors who looked to him with respect, earned through blood and sacrifice. Thunder Moon stood beside him, her wound bandaged with strips torn from her wedding dress, her eyes bright with pride and something deeper that needed no translation. The marriage ceremony could finally be completed, but it felt like a formality after what they had shared in battle, their bond forged in ways more permanent than any ritual. Chief Running Bear stepped forward to perform the abbreviated ceremony, his voice carrying across the canyon as he spoke the ancient words that made them husband and wife before their people. The warriors' cheers echoed off the canyon walls, a sound of triumph that would be remembered in Apache songs for generations to come. The revelation that changed everything came when they searched Colonel Thornfield's personal effects, finding documents that exposed the full scope of the conspiracy against all southwestern tribes. Mining companies had paid corrupt military officers to provoke wars that would justify seizing tribal lands, with Thornfield's attack being just one part of a coordinated campaign. The papers contained names, dates, and locations that could bring down the entire network if delivered to the right authorities in Washington or Mexico City. Ezra realized that their victory in the canyon was just the beginning of a larger struggle, one that would require the same unity and leadership they had discovered during the battle. Thunder Moon translated the documents for the assembled chiefs, her voice growing harder as she revealed the extent of the betrayal and the need for continued vigilance. The aftermath of the battle brought unexpected allies as word spread of the Apache victory against overwhelming odds, inspiring other tribes and oppressed groups to seek alliance with Ezra's growing coalition. Mexican revolutionaries arrived with offers of weapons and supplies, while sympathetic settlers provided intelligence about military movements and political developments. Thunder Moon proved as skilled at diplomacy as she was at warfare, her imposing presence and sharp intelligence making her invaluable in negotiations with potential allies. The prophecy had spoken of a leader who would unite 500 warriors, but Ezra had discovered something greater, the power of partnership with someone whose strengths complemented his own. Together, they represented a new kind of leadership that could bridge the gaps between different peoples and cultures. The wedding feast that night celebrated more than just a marriage, honoring the birth of an alliance that would reshape the balance of power throughout the Southwest. Ezra sat beside his towering bride, still amazed by the journey that had brought him from terrified captive to respected war chief in less than a day. Thunder Moon's hand rested on his shoulder, her touch gentle despite the calluses earned through years of training and battle, her presence both protective and supported. The warriors who had followed them into battle now looked to them for guidance in the challenges ahead, their loyalty earned through shared sacrifice rather than fear or tradition. As the fire burned low and the celebrations continued around them, Ezra understood that the prophecy had been fulfilled not through his individual greatness, but through his willingness to recognize and unite the greatness in others. The story that began with forced marriage in a hostile camp had transformed into something neither Ezra nor Thundermoon could have imagined when they first met across that ceremonial fire. They had found in each other not just survival, but purpose. Not just alliance, but love that transcended the differences in their backgrounds and cultures. The 500 warriors who called him leader had taught him that true strength came not from commanding others, but from inspiring them to become their best selves. As Thundermoon's head settled against his shoulder and the desert stars wheeled overhead, Ezra reflected on the strange twists of fate that had brought him to this moment of perfect completeness. The giant woman they had forced him to marry had indeed made him a leader, but more importantly, she had made him a man worthy of the loyalty and love he had discovered in the most unlikely of places.